Luca, I assume you want to be the MC today, also because
I can be. I can be, definitely.
Okay.
Cool. So
okay, let's go.
Thanks a lot. Please write your name in the who joined the section, and also remember to be nice to everyone as usual, and also remember that this is recorded, so other people will know what incredibly secret things we are discussing in our maintainer call. So last time we have been discussing what we want to put into the new release of Falco. That is going to be 0.36. That for everyone following, it's going to be at the end of September. So we have a bit less than 3 months from here to release. And so we wanted to plan that time, and we wanted to make sure that we were all kind of on the same page about what we will try to deliver for this feature. Last time we had a lot of interesting discussions, and there were kind of two kinds of items that I reported here. I spoke with pretty much everyone here about, except for Malo, who I think had some more pressing matters to tend. But I spoke with everyone about the items and what we want to prioritize. And there's two kinds of items. One is something that the CNCF has kindly asked us to review for graduation, which we are going to prioritize, and everyone was of course happy with that. And the other is stuff that we think are doable for Falco 0.36. I would like to go, and I took these items from the previous list that we did, that is on the bottom part, and I simply tried to prioritize them, and also took a look at what people already did or they were doing and were finalizing. So I think there shouldn't be news there, but if you agree, I would like to go through all of them and then see if there's something that doesn't feel right. Are you good with that? Cool. So for the graduation parts, in terms of especially the part that we core maintainers are looking more closely, there's a lot of issues there. Let's say GitHub issues and items that we have in the graduation part. So those are a lot, but there are a few that as a core maintainer really need to take care of, especially the parts that are related to the code. So the rest, we're getting help from the community, of course. So one is the rule maturity framework. I've been talking with Melissa a lot about it. Melissa did a great job at writing a proposal. Here we have been discussing it, and I think it looks pretty nice. And our job would be to actually act on that proposal and have basically a little rule split for this and dividing the rules by maturity as we discussed. Then this should be done by this month as the TOC has kindly requested. Of course, we don't have to solve every rule problem, but at least have a framework that we're using in place in this month. Then we've got the kernel version testing, where Melissa added her valuable input, and then we have been discussing it with other contributors and maintainers and other people. And this one, we are asking for resources to the CNCF to have it running constantly, and we are setting up a hopefully robust way of doing of pretty much running continuously those tests in a certain number of distributions. Then we've got some documentation about API data flow boundaries. This one is in the document that we have been discussing with the CNCF, is maybe less defined than the kernel version testing part, but I think by using common sense, what we want to do, and the way I see this and the way we see it, is let's take what a power user would want to know about our kernel instrumentation. So they don't want to know, I think, every detail of the protocol, because that can change. But what kind of events do we have? How are these events transmitted? And what is the generic API that we're using to do that? Like, what are the mechanisms that we're using? And then, if you want to contribute, we actually have a framework inside that allows you to pretty much even implement your own source, even implement your own customization. And that ought to be documented as well, because that's what a contributor might want to do. So this is how I kind of see in this issue. And then, and these are very important, so I wanted to spend a few words on them. The rest are pretty much known and to many people. We've got the symlink bypass problem that we've been discussing for a while. We probably won't have a perfect solution, especially from the get-go, but in 0.36, we have to have something. And even if it turns out to be not perfect and we want to implement it later in another way, but we need some step forward. We have an issue with DNS parsing, as it was explained by adopters, and we all agree that we still need to do something there. Now, people with that are using new versions of CRI and C groups are noticing that Falco stopped working, so we will make Falco work there, and we already have PRs that are merged or in a later stage of reviews. Finishing the metrics feature work that Melissa and Jason have been working on for last release. Signatures and verification to complete for plugins and rules. We are in a really good spot there. We did a lot of work with Max and other people in the supply chain security working group. And we've got a fix for inconsistent process hierarchy. So, a lot of people have noticed that if you do proc.ancestor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes something weird, very weird happens, and we want to remove that and have at least an ancestor list that kind of makes sense. Then deciding on the container image, upgrading the fat one and deciding on the slim one. There is one other feature that has been asked for years, that is allowing multiple rules to match an event, even if it's an opt-in thing. Right now, only one rule matches, and we want, at least we want to try to get more than one rule to match on an event. It will be an opt-in thing, only for people that want it, but it's been requested for a long time, and I think it's time to get them. For the joy of Mauro, let's upgrade the OpenSSL to 3 point something, because otherwise we will be shipping security software with unsecure libraries. At least try to move forward with Falco driver loaded deprecation, because nobody likes that bash script. And the last ones, I think I put them in kind of a priority order, not strict, but still. Windows and macOS CI is something that we have on libs. I think we should have them on Falco. It's something very basic, just to make sure that the code we write is not stuck to one single platform, but it's generic enough. Also, we have been working, Jason has been working for WASM, and so it means that we want to be a bit more multi-platform, even if we don't distribute artifacts for those. And then we have a massive project undergoing for Kubernetes metadata. You can read all about it. A lot of people are complaining about Kubernetes metadata acquisition, and it's very hard to fix, and we have people doing that. And last but not least, we had a massive list last time of, if you scroll down, there's a massive list of rule language issue. And I think perhaps we could take a few that fit into this release and go on. I just went through the list, and now you can add your comments and add everything that you wish. Thomas has the first one.
Yeah.
Can you hear me or not? I have only
Yes,
one
I can.
earbud. Yeah. So talking about the collections of Kubernetes metadata, it's also a classic request from the community. What about collecting metadata from the cloud provider? For example, Amazon, Wiki, or GCP or else. This is a classic request they have to have more fields and more context to the events. Is that related? Can we take advantage of that PR or that issue to do more?
I don't think that specifically is related because this is a Kubernetes, mostly related to Kubernetes itself, and especially the fact that the main issue here is that if you have massive clusters or clusters where a lot of things happen, Falco might crash because it doesn't, it cannot process all that stuff, and so it needs a more scalable solution. Although I'm not completely familiar. Leo wanted to add something on this point.
Yeah, I just want one thing that basically this initiative is to fix those fields we already have. But at any time, everyone can add or create another plugin to add new field for other provider. And I believe Jason has some doubts about that.
No, actually, I have more color because what Thomas is requesting has been asked, I think, as one of the first issues that has been opened by the community after we published the plugin system in 2022. So yes, it is something that we should think about. Now the plugin API allows implementing such a thing. Before 0.35 we couldn't, basically. My big question is, yes, it is feasible. Is it feasible? Like, should we put it on this roadmap? So also considering the fact that the plugin development lifecycle is totally detached from the Falco one. So potentially this could like be a new initiative and start even without being in this list. What do you guys think?
I mean, to me, it sounds like it
totally...
should be. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we improve the way we collect metadata from the communities, maybe it could open the gate to other methods, other collections of external data, especially static data that can be collected at the Bootstrap only.
My perspective, two initiatives are orthogonal to each other. Like they're totally separate projects that can start, without depending on another.
Okay, thanks.
I was going to say that.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, it sounds like it should be like its own plugin, because even if you wanted to create like something like grab cloud data provider generic plugin, it sounds like it's going to be like, okay, we're going to have like one GCP plugin, and then another one for AWS, and then another one for like Oracle Cloud, and then another one for, and that all just kind of sounds like something that the community could take care of. Maybe we open an issue in the plugins repo and be like, hey, if someone wants to work on this, go ahead.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Maud. And the purpose of this is just to make sure that we are on the same page and try to agree. And if we agree on the list, and we can discuss as much as we want, when we agree on the list, we are going to put that list. I am going to put that list into the roadmap that we have on GitHub. There is a nice roadmap page on the project, and that would be the part where we link all those issues that you find there.
Luca, could you add an item to it, other community requests that are easy to implement to that list?
Which ones?
To that list, just because there have been some issues open for a year or 2 years. Just, hey, I also want to append to, for example, the output fields, not just to the condition. They're super minor code changes. We can totally support that. That's just an example, since I opened PRs around that.
So
just add an item for, I don't know, urgent or important community requests that are minor feature enhancements, something at that line.
So Melissa, I don't think we need a specific item for this for this thing, because if something is very urgent and can happen at any time, and it doesn't take a long time, I think we can simply implement and add it without having it formally added. So something, especially urgent bug fixes or something like that, is fine. If you're talking breaking changes or features or something like that, I think we discussed about a lot of features. If I missed something that is easy to implement and we could have it, we can add it. Jason, you probably, maybe you know a bit more about what we're talking about? Maybe have some idea.
Yeah, I saw your PRs. At least I didn't really review yet, but I see the direction we're going with them. So I think as far as like improving the Falco rule language, there are two distinct directions we could go. Actually, three, if you ask me. So first is like simple fixes that don't create breaking change, and second is like big fixes that do create breaking change, such as fixing the string escaping in like lists and filters. And then there's also like the few features additions like this one. So this kind of change I'm generally positive about because they're not disruptive. They will not like change the UX of the tool for people already using the rule sets. What we might think about is what's the smartest way to support what the user is asking without adding too many new constructs inside the rules. Because in the past, we really were not that much diligent in adding new key mappings in the YAML file. And nowadays there's like some that are supported by the parser, but nobody uses. So appending to outputs and appending to tags, which is like the one that you opened, I think it's generally positive. I'm supportive of that. And thank you for taking the charge. The other issue that user has been arising is the thing about merging the rule definition instead of like substituting that. And that's specifically something that I want to think about more, mostly because it needs to be explicit, in my opinion. Like people overriding rules, assuming that they are entirely substituted, should not be lose that guarantee, in my opinion. Otherwise it's like breaking change, or if it's not, it's just something hard to debug. But we can take this offline in general. But in general, about those changes, thank you for taking the charge. And appending the append new features, I'm supportive. The other one, I want to think about it more, just that.
Okay,
So if I can I ask the two of you, and if you can, we can add it to the action item. To as you can see, there is in the solving issues and add features to the Falco rule language, line 61, there is no GitHub issues linked. Can you take like a couple that should be the ones that we get into Falco 036, and we can add them, and so we can have them in the public roadmap? So we are happy. I know that you have more context on these specific issues than I do.
Okay,
Yeah, I have one more comment about Mauro. Please go on first. Maybe it's a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have
it's
a
surely a
question.
good question. It's from Mauro.
No. Yeah, now I forgot the question. Sorry about me being ignorant about the rules engine, but do we have a way to change the chain rules? As in, hey, this rule should only be tested if this other rule has already passed? Because when you say, hey, we want to merge rules, it just sounds like what I actually want is to like test these things if this other rule has already been passed. So maybe that's something to consider. At least that's what we did in like the previous job I had. So
that's something.
So Mauro, are you referring to like one rules fires at T0 and then at T2 another rules fires and you have like
no, basically
another event, or are you talking about an event
basically
firing two
just
rules?
having like the event be something like you have rule 0 that checks for, I don't know, PIDs over 10,000, something stupid like that. And then you have rule 1 that goes, okay, first off, I want rule 0 as a prerequisite for me, and then I want to check something else. So rule 0 should already have been like triggered, and then rule 1 will, if the condition for rule 1 is also met, it will be create an event for rule 1 instead of rule 0.
I think we already have the first step into doing this, which is what I added in line 49. That would be allow multiple rules to match an event, which is the prerequisite for all that. And then I think personally, I would see it for the not for 036, but for the next one, having an extension to the language that allows you to use this feature even better could be something that I would be interested in, honestly. But we need the first step first, I'd say. Leo, you wanted to add something?
I just want to Mauro one thing that I'm not sure I understood. Do you mean something like reusing the same condition across multiple rules, or something like even correlation?
It's the
across
first.
multiple
It was the
rules?
same question I had, and it's the first.
Okay.
So it's like
If it's the first, like it should be like using macros, more or less, or something more. Yeah.
You could do something similar, but like if you want to like merge rules and be like, I don't want to have like 5 different events, I just want one of them to match, being the last one, then it's not the same.
Okay.
If it makes sense.
Anyway, if you can describe this in an issue or a comment, something like that, it would be interesting to just thinking about it.
Leo, this is a matter of correlation. I think what Mario is suggesting is basically that one rule triggering influences the fact that another one triggers. We don't have that kind of knowledge in any way. And Luca, more than one rules for each event does not help, because that's just a matter of like, we don't keep memory of which rules as being executed before. That, of course, if you want total correlation, you need that, you're right. But I think that's not step one, it's actually step 0. Like it's a totally different project if you want to do like something.
Yeah. And historically, just to add a bit more context of this, historically, we have seen this as something that is outside of the context of Falco, also because you need to store all those events. Because just to give an example, when you restart the capture, for example, if Falco restarts, you will lose all the correlation. Currently, everything that Falco stores in its state is something that can reconstruct when it restarts. I mean, this is the historical reason. I'm not saying today this still apply, but I just want to add some color on that.
Yeah, the way I understood it, I could have like 2 rules, both matching, both firing. That's why, Jason, I thought that this was a step. There was step 1 and then another step, because we could have 2 rules, both firing, but one was just one part of the rule, and the second had the first. It's like copy pasting the condition plus something else, but it's actually a bit more subtle. So, as Leonardo said, I would be happy to see a bit more description on that, so we can all agree on what it is. But it's an interesting project, I think.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not about like 2 separate events triggering rules one after the other. It's the same event triggering different rules. So you still have like this. You should have the context at least.
Okay. So it's more like what.
It's kind of like using a macro to like copy the same event to like 5 different rules, but be like, don't actually give me 5 different events, because that's really noisy. Just give me the one that matches closest to the thing that I want. But we can take this on offline and talk about it.
Anyway, Mauro, if you want to add a note inside our markdown, feel free, because I'm not sure how to describe this, just for that. Okay, so feel free.
My additional point was just all the changes that require intervention in the rule language that introduce breaking changes. I'm not positive that this is something that we could fit into 0.36, also considering all the graduation tasks that we have. So my only ask is, if we have minor additions like the one that Melissa is pushing for, I agree, but I don't think we are able to handle all the work in transition migration actually effort required to do breaking changes in the language by this release.
If I may just like add to that one, Jason, I do agree. And I think all of these changes are more related, maybe let's label it DevOps, the ability to load rules differently for different host groups, or calling out inconsistencies. We introduced the feature to append to a rule just for a condition, but no one ever cared to add this for all the fields where it actually makes sense. So I think none of these actually touch the rules expression language. I think those are really just about management. And I actually, since you guys know I do deploy Falco, I mean, I have it differently, it doesn't affect me, but I feel their pain. They're completely right. This one person, he called out, hey, like it doesn't make sense if you offer this, but then don't give me those options. Basically, I can't use anything of it, and I just need to rewrite my whole rules files. So I do feel their pain and I do agree with their call out.
Yeah, no, my intervention
Yeah.
was just about the scale in terms of like if you implement the appending feature for the output and the tags, I'm totally on board. But I think you're referring to Thomas Fear, right? He's the guy
Yep.
opening many of those issues. He really proposed a lot of things, like for example, having exceptions to macros, creating actually fragment or macros for outputs as well. That's sort of like big features to add into the language. The ones that you're proposing are pretty small, and I'm very positive about. The other ones I
Okay.
just want more, just that.
Perfect. I think we can probably wrap that up. As was just one highlight or one example of maybe we can go and triage the existing issues and see if there's something that's really a pain point for a lot of adopters, and we can address it easily. And especially issues that have been open for 2 years, I think we should really get going on those ones. Of course, graduation items, they're a priority, but we should also not forget about if customers cannot use Falco effectively, maybe one day they'll just use a different tool. So never forget about that one.
Thanks.
I
Thanks.
had some
Leo, you had another
general
question?
thoughts. No, I want just to add the general thoughts about this in general. I mean, because this roadmap does not imply that all the items will be delivered in 0.36. This is basically just a way to us to agree on what we are working on, and this also means that we can work also on other features if they are needed. For this reason, we will meet again every month to revise this list. On top of that, my proposal would be if we have other items that we think are important for the community, we can start listing them and put them in our backlog or already set them for the next release. Because, for example, I imagine that not all of these items will be delivered inside this release. Probably some of them will be in August or in September, will be postponed to 0.37. When doing that, if we already have a list of other items that are important, we can start drafting the roadmap for the next release. So we basically, I'm just asking you to get prepared for the next roadmap. I don't know if all of you agree and if what they say makes sense for you. That's it.
I don't have anything else to add to this list at this point. And again, if we if you all agree, we'll put this on the roadmap that Leonardo said, and we can keep revising, of course, the roadmap depending on what we were able to do and what we weren't able to do, and as with every project, pretty much.
By the way, Luca, this GitHub project needs a lot of care because in my first try, I just imported everything into this that we will probably need to move out and just include those items that are listed here. I can help with this. Let me know.
Cool. Thanks.
And
right.
I'm happy, and I'm very happy that this is the third consecutive maintainer call. It's kind of a record for us.
Cool. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. If there's no additional thoughts, thank you so much for joining, and see you.
Wait, Luca, you want to stop the meeting?
Yeah, if there's no additional thoughts, did you have any items?
Yeah, since we're all here, I would propose to get the rules maturity framework discussed in all detail. I think the open items are, if we add a tag maturity, does that mean we add the tag, or do we go the route of splitting the rules into different files, pros and cons for each. I can go first. My proposition would be to first only add the tag maturity, but keep the one file. And even if we then in the future add separate files for incubating or sandbox rules, still keep the maturity tag. That's my proposal. If anyone wants to go next or ask questions, what needs to happen to merge this PR or create on a framework?
Melissa, I want just to let you know that I was preparing my review for your for your request, and basically just to have the idea of this, I am totally on board with splitting multiple files, and my proposal will be to use tags instead of introducing a new YAML key, because we already have a lot of mechanisms that are battle tested to select the rules using this stuff. Okay, so basically, in brief, my proposal would be define these tags, these special tags, okay, and use this feature that we already have to select to enable or disable rules based on this maturity tag. We can also port this feature into the Falco YAML, so that basically will do everything you already said in your proposal. Of course, this is my preference. If we agree on introducing a new YAML key, I will not against it. I just need, I believe, another hour tomorrow to double check everything and post my review. Sorry for being so late.
And anyone else having thoughts? I don't know, Mauro, maybe that's a little new to you since you're coming back, or anyone else?
We don't actually use the rules engine, so I have no opinions.
But what do you think? What is best for adopters?
I will have to go through the entire thing. I'm sorry. I got back on Monday. I'm still like ramping up.
And Thomas, you have any thoughts?
I think everything we can pass through arguments should be also available in the YAML file. I'm not for adding a new YAML key, but be able to select the tags we want to enable or disable, or even select the source we want to disable. We should have these information, these settings in the falco.yaml, especially for GitOps, for GitOps logic.
Yep.
That's my same point. Like, I think if we take this from a broader angle, there's tons of things that are in the CLI arguments that should actually be pushed down to the falco.yaml configuration file.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I mean, I'm not saying deprecating, but remember, Melissa, we did for the stats. Yep. Like keep maintaining the flag so that breaking changes are not there, but saying that it's deprecated and we use falco.yaml in place of that. So I really, in this case specifically, like disabling and enabling tags, I didn't think extensively about all the possible outcomes, but I do think it's a better approach to handle that in the Falco YAML file. And I do think that if we can avoid adding new keys in the YAML, file as much as possible, we'll be happy. So if we can implement this by using the building blocks that we have already, such as tags, I think that's something good. Plus, if you think about it, if we use tags, that's information that is pushed out even in the output. So for example, projects like Falco Sidekick can consume the fact that a rule is mature or not, stable incubating after when they receive the alert. So I'm supportive of the idea of implementing this as a tag and also pushing down the enabling disable tags into the configuration file.
This is great. I think we have a decision and I shall go ahead and change it again. And everyone's on board with splitting the files for
Yeah, my initial idea was that splitting the files, I wanted to go with splitting the files with, and I saw the use for adding the tags. And since we already have facilities in Falco, I think it makes sense to. We already did the same, as I understood today from Jason. We should do the same for this option, and we can do it without splitting the files and then split the files at a later date. But since we have support for delivering a lot of different rules sets, rules files in the same repo, we can do it whenever we want, and it would just work. Leo had another question.
Yes, I want just to add one thing. This is something I'm writing in the review. I will post it, I believe, tomorrow. But basically, my point is this: if the current set of enabled rules will match the stable rule files, I believe we can split files starting from this release, because it will not be a huge breaking change for our adopters. This is just one thought. And another thing is related to the application rules files. I believe that application rules files should not be included in the default Falco distribution, because it's just like a bunch of examples and should be declassed to sandbox or something like that.
I have a point here.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
No, sorry, Leo, finish up first if you have
No,
more.
I just want to say that if we decide to split rules, we already have application rules splitted basically, and we can just leave it there and remove from the default Falco packages. And also, if the set of enable rules will match the stable one, we basically will be okay, in my opinion. But I will take a look again tomorrow, and I will post my review. That's it.
Jason?
Mama, I think you can go first. You raised the hand.
Yeah,
before.
it's basically about the application rules file. Especially now we have Falco CTL and a way to distribute rules through OCR artifact. In future, we may have something like the artifact hub, and maybe the current artifact hub may already be ready to host the rules. And it will allow the community or anyone else to create specific scope rules files to one or another application and distribute them by their own. So we could contact MongoDB, Apache, or else to help us write the specific rules of Apache, MySQL, MongoDB, and all of them to promote and distribute them through the OCI artifacts and through the hub, the artifact hub, or else. So this is my point of view, my 2 cents.
I agree, by the way, I generally support the idea of having multiple rules files. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jason, like.
No, yeah, I'm on board with splitting the rules files, and also, I mean, all of you are aware, but I'm gonna say it. I mean, this can go totally in pair with the idea of having the maturity set as a tag, so we can decide to do one, both, or even one another. So that's good. One thing that I wanted to say is first, if we split into, so if all the currently disabled rules by default in the official rule set gets pulled out in a different rule set, and we don't bundle that inside the main Falco package, that will be a breaking change, because even though they're not enabled by default, a lot of people can override them to be enabled without redefining the whole rule. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm totally on board. We just need to think about advertising the fact that people need to load the second rule set as well. The point about application rules, I think that yes, I do agree that we may ship it differently. And now that we have Falco CTL and all that stuff, I implemented in the last few weeks a CI checks basically for the rules repository, and they've been read since 2 weeks. The reason is because the CI reports as errors, even the warnings in the rule set, and the application rules files has tons of rules not disabled but just commented, which is, you know, I think they're not maintained by that much time that we didn't have the enabled keyword back in the days. So I think if we want to keep them without deprecating them, I'm totally on board, but at least my proposal is, if we want to release them as an artifact, let's first clean it up by removing all the comments, disabling by default all the rules, and then publishing a new tag potentially. So that's my point. In the current form they have, they're not usable in our setup because you cannot compose them. If we import that rules file as is, you cannot override rules because they don't exist in the, you know, in the file as is. You have to uncomment it. So.
And
Yeah.
Jason, they were not touched in 5 or 6 years, just for your information. So that's okay. What I like about having a big breaking change, it increases awareness of this new rules maturity framework. It's rough and tough, but it could be a positive side effect of really introducing that big breaking change, by the way. So I personally would be on board splitting. That's fine. And as you said, like all rules disabled by default, I think they should just be shuffled into Sandbox and then be worked on to be promoted to incubating. And I think at the end of the day, for graduation, we should at least have, I think I wrote 20 rules that are stable. I think that's a good number to aim for. Maybe we can have more than 20, maybe 30 that are really good.
Leo, you can go if you want. I have a comment.
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, I want just to say that I don't see application rules as a problem because there are basically no rules inside that file. All rules are commented and there are just macros and the lists. So in any case, I wouldn't see it like a breaking change if we move it because there cannot be any adopter that are using the file as is now.
Yes.
It's impossible, basically.
Are we all on board or on uncommenting that those rules?
Yes, and Sandbox and disabled. And
Okay,
then like
case, yes.
how do we go about to keep the Git history? I don't know, maybe Jason, you seem to be the most experienced in that to start the splitting out as is, or Leo?
But I think we cannot do much here. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another point that I wanted to raise is we had an issue open in the past. Now I do not have the link with me, but since enabling and disabling rules is becoming like a major point in the maturity framework, we need to discuss about this. So the issue is, if you have a rule disabled by default, and you enable by using tags, markers, using the CLI, basically something like that, you override currently the enable flag in the YAML file. So let's say that you have I don't know, a rule for the container tag and it's disabled. If you do Falco -t and you enable all the rules with tag container, even if it was that rule wasn't marked as disabled in the YAML file, it will get enabled. So the big ask from the user was, can we make the enabled tag in the YAML file have priority over the tag selectors? Now, I didn't really face this in the past because, again, breaking changes and stuff, but if you're gonna use the enable flag consistently for the maturity framework, I think we need to think about this.
Jason, I'll add that to the list because that's just in line what we discussed earlier with the append, partial overrides, and just rules management that doesn't affect the. So I put in all the bullet points you can add to that. I think we should address that and have yet another great guide, tutorial, or doc, in addition to the pending 6 documentation pieces.
In the big list that I copy pasted in the past container call, in this like 12 issues and stuff, it should be there. I'll go and search for it. I've been collecting these issues for like a year. Yeah, because I do see them open, but it's hard to tackle the problem because
0.36 it is, where we're flying to the moon, guys. Okay, that would be just the one thing. I think we have consensus here to, one, split the rules, a big breaking change. Maybe we should start promoting it even now. Hey, that big breaking change is coming by end of September. Whatever customizations you have, be aware of this. And I don't know, what would be the first step? I mean, besides Leo, you post tomorrow and I will change the language to reflect all the consensus.
Yeah.
And then like, but the next engineering steps, who would be splitting the rules into files? I don't know, Leo, Jason?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
It's not working. Yeah.
And after that, we can slowly start, carving out and go with the flow.
Yeah, and I recommend that during the next call that we have in August, we have to decide if start advertising this breaking change, if
Mhm.
any, of course. Yeah, I believe that if we decide in early August, we will have 2 months. That is enough to start writing in the mailing list, writing blog posts, things like that. Also, because I just want to remind everyone you that with the new release cycle, we should have a release build that can be tested by the user at the end of each month. So I expect a release build of Falco at the end of this month, another at the end of August, of course, the final release at the end of September. So adopters will have also a chance to try the new system before the final release. That's it.
I think this is really it.
I think so, right? That was the most important. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing up the last point, Melissa. So, well, then we'll see all of us next time, next month, and in the community calls as usual. Thank you so much for the great discussions and for agreeing on things.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone.